Okay, just testing out this new idea. Okay, from you here? Mm-hmm. Okay. So, you did Chumash yesterday? Well, either way, quick recap. Yeah, so, Avraham Avinu, our forefather, is looking to bury our foremother, Sarah, his wife, who is now passed at the very beginning of the Torah portion this week. And he, of course, wants to buy the cave of Machpelah. And we learned yesterday about the whole ordeal that became, just to buy it, because, in short, the people of the land, or namely Ephraim, the son of Tzeichar, who owned that land, wanted to give it away to Avram, and Avram insisted on paying for it. There's a lot of reasoning behind this, of course. It's actually pointed out by our sages that of course, the whole land of Israel belongs to the Jewish people, but especially the cave of Machpelah, the Temple Mount, and the tomb of Joseph, the Yosef HaTzadik's tomb in Shechem. These are recorded in the Torah as not just gifts to us from Hashem, being part of the whole land in general, but as purchases that we have made in the past. Our ancestors purchased these plots of land for their full value, and even as we read yesterday, Avram got ripped off on this, right? He ended up paying 400 silver shekels that were of universal currency. In other words, in some places the shekel is bigger, some places the shekel is smaller. These were the big ones that would work anywhere and everywhere. Okay, so now just continuing on to that story, finishing up that purchase, is how today's Chumash starts, and then we start the next part. Very interesting idea, actually, how what we're about to read, how this is the first shlichus, right? Today we know of many shluchim. This is the first shlichus in the Torah, that Avraham is going to send Eliezer, his trusty servant, and he's basically going to make him a shliach. He's going to make him his emissary, his messenger. And our sages tell us, actually, according to many opinions, that he freed him from being in the category of a servant, and sent him off to go find a wife for our forefather Yitzchak, Avraham's son. And we begin to read about that first conversation between Avraham and Eliezer today. So first of all, back to the cave, right? Ephraim's field of Machpelah, which faced the plains of Mamre, the field, the cave within it, and every tree within its perimeter, was thus confirmed now that Abraham gave over these 400 silver shekels of universal currency, universally negotiable currency. Now it was confirmed as Avraham's purchase publicly, in full view of the Chittis, the Chitti people, and of all who had come to the gate of a city, thereby making the purchase, it uses a fancy word over here in this Chumash, incontrovertible. Did I pronounce that correctly? Let's see. Just because we're live streaming, I figure we should do some silly things like this. Even though I personally myself, we get what it means. I don't think I need to pronounce it correctly, but let's see. Incontrovertible.
Incontrovertible.
Yes, we got it. right? Not able to be denied or disputed. And it's interesting. The Torah uses the word. I'll read that. I just read the translation of two psukim here from the Kahas Chumash, but I'll read the psukim inside with the holy tongue, with Hashem's words of the Torah. Vayakom stay Ephraim asher b'machpelah asher lifnei mamre hasada v'amora asher boi v'chol ha'etz asher basada asher b'chol gvulei saviv lahavram lemikna le'enei v'nei ches b'chol ba'ei sha'ar iroi. So we use the term vayakom, that the field arose. In other words, it was confirmed as Avram's purchase. But we use this term, which in Hebrew means it arose. It rose up. And we see here how just because Avraham intended on doing this great mitzvah of burying his wife, and especially because his wife, our foremother Sarah, was a tzaddikus. No, I think it's yours. Just like my wife is a tzaddikus. And so his intention that she would be there already made the physical land rise up in status. So the fact that he was purchasing it and the fact that he was about to go bury Sarah in it made it rose from a commoner's property to that of a noble person, right? Avraham's. Fine. Let's see any Rashis inside. Vayakom stay Ephraim. Yeah, that the field of Ephraim arose. Oh, I have a chavrusa in 30 minutes. I need to tell him that I have an appointment. Yeah. Let me message him now. Oh, yeah. I'll also send him the link to this live stream. Which I just figure out how to do. Oh, yeah. Think I could send a voice note while I'm live streaming? Yeah, it's not impossible. The truth is, I don't plan on going to the oil. I plan on going to the Rebbe. Hopefully we don't need to go to the oil for that. Okay, so says Rashi, Tkuma hisaloi, sheyotzam yad hedyot yad malach. Okay, so what I just told you, yeah, that Ephraim's field arose. It had a rise in status because it passed from the hands of an ordinary person to the hands of a king, a noble person, Avram. But simply speaking, obviously that's a little bit more of like an interpretation on the specific word vayakom that it arose. But simply speaking, it means that now it was a confirmed purchase. That in front of everyone who had come to the gate of the city to see this transpire. Bekerev kulam ubemaimat kulam hiknaolai. Right, everybody was witness to this basically, to Avram's legal possession, Avram's purchase from Ephraim. Fine, your test. I'll read first in Lashon Kodesh. V'achri chein kabar Abraham es Sarah ishtay el maras stei hamachpela al pnei mamre hi chavrein be'eretz Canaan. Once Abraham purchased the field and the cave, thereby two things: A, completely disassociating Ephraim's name from them, and B, elevating their status to that of royal property. He buried his wife Sarah in the cave of the field of Machpelah, facing the plains of Mamre, which is Chavrein in Canaan. And in order to show proper respect for Sarah, Avram wanted to bury her in the field of a noble rather than in that of a commoner. So there are many, many reasons why Avram insisted on buying the land, even though they were even insisting on giving it to him for free. And as we know, good things don't come for free. And especially, I'm saying spiritually speaking, there's a lot of significance to the hard work and actually paying for something. It's full price, but unless you want watches and you don't want to pay the full price, right? I should plug my business over here. Then you come to me. But I mean, full price in effort and in like not trying to skimp on something of serious value. And obviously, this is a lot more valuable than any high-end watch. And Avraham specifically wanted, but over here what we're mentioning is, I won't get so into the details of that, but Avraham specifically wanted to buy it so that he could completely disassociate it from Ephraim and have the full authority over it, and also because he wants that his wife should be able to bury his wife in land that he owns, not land that is owned by someone else. Perhaps I should also plug the concept of buying a burial site, right? Officially, that's a skula for long life, as if you already own the property that your body would, in theory, be buried in. And I like to say in theory, and I kind of struggle with this idea because, living in Mashiach mode, we're not expecting to die. So what's that all about? But that is what the Code of Jewish Law tells us, that by buying this property, you actually, it's actually a segula for long life. Okay. I keep saying It's very interesting to do these things live, It's funny because I don't even know how many people are watching this. Maybe 0, maybe 1. Chances are 1 or 2. And I would be much less nervous even if there was 30 people around the table right now. So just because, I guess the idea is there's a potential here of, so many people watching this, either logging on and seeing it live or in the future. That's kind of, as you're uploading to the internet, it's just there unless you take active measures to take it down. So it's there is an interesting thing to be said about that. But this is way more interesting, so I'll stop talking about that and continue doing Chumash. Okay, we're going to go a little quicker. So, the field and its cave were thus confirmed as Avram's property by the fact that he designated the cave in accordance with his intention in buying it as a burial ground purchased outright and unequivocally from the Hittites through Ephraim. That is the final verse of this chapter 23 of Genesis, and that ends this particular story. Right? I just read that one. So the last verse is Vayakam Asada B'Amar Asher Boila Avraham Lachuzas Kaver Me'es B'nei Ches. Okay, moving on right into Genesis chapter 24. Things get spicy over here. V'Avraham Zakin Bawa Yamim V'Adonai Beirech Es Avraham Ba'Koyel. 3 years later, in the year 2088 from creation, 2088, Avraham decided it was time for Yitzchak to marry Rivka. Avram already, 3 years prior, had decided that it was time for him to find a wife for Yitzchak and began the search. And Hashem told Avraham that your son is going to marry the daughter of Besuel. Her name is Rivka. And now Avraham decided that they should get married. By this time, Avraham was 140 years old. Even though he was old and maturity tends to breed benign and nonchalance, Avraham continued to deeply internalize his experiences. Some people make fun of Facebook. I know this is streaming live on Facebook. That all the older people are on Facebook, right? Well, first of all, the cool young people like us here in this video are on Facebook. That's number one. Number two is that age, as the Frierdiker Rebbe, the previous Rebbe, says, is simply a number on the passport. A person's real age is really if a person might be a child in knowledge or an adult in knowledge, that has nothing to do with the number on their passport. And of course, it's not only knowledge, but it's also how much curiosity do you still have? How much childlike willingness to be, willingness and openness to listen to the people around you do you still have? Because as we adult, and life hits, we start deciding this means this means this, this means this. Why? Because not that we're wrong, but because that's what works for us. But the point is to still, to constantly cultivate that. That's what real chachma is. Real wisdom is the word koyachma, the ability The ability of what? The ability to constantly be asking, constantly be curious. Okay, I said that we're going to move quicker, and I'm just so used to like doing chassidus on videos, not like chumash and Gemara and stuff like that. Okay. Yeah, so we see from Avram that he was old, but he continued to, what does it mean, Baba Yamim, that he was coming into his days, that every single day still was everything. And I just started Parak Chav Daled by Abraham Zakin, very famous pasuk. A lot of chassidus on this. And Hashem blessed him with everything. Right? God had blessed Avram with a son in his old age, worthy of becoming his successor, and this son was everything to Avraham. So he felt deeply responsible for guaranteeing the perpetuation of his line in order to ensure that the divine mission to which he had dedicated his life would continue. Okay, says Rashi, Beirachas Avram Bakol, that Hashem blessed Avram with everything. Bakol oila begematria bein. The word Bakol, which means everything, has the same numerical value as the word bein, son, 52. So, what do we mean by Hashem blessed him with everything? Hashem blessed him with a son. And since he was blessed with this child, he needed to get him married, right? To continue his legacy. So, very high praise for this servant Eliezer. Avram, he said to his servant Eliezer, the elder member of his household, who was in charge of all that he owned. Avram had serious trust in Eliezer. And he said to him, now, despite having trust in him, he makes him swear. I want you to swear to me. In order for this type of oath to take force, the person taking the oath must hold a holy object while swearing. Problem is that at this point in time, before the Torah was given, there was no holy objects, because as much as our forefathers, through the line of Noach, and specifically Shem, his son Shem, the son of Noah, and Aver, a grandson, would be teaching the Torah, and this was the way that people knew what the commandments were before they were given, and people like Abraham chose to fulfill all the commandments. Even so, there was no idea of a holy object, because there was no way to make the holiness of the commandments permeate physicality. That only begun to take place by the giving of the Torah, by the official, formal giving of the Torah at Sinai years later. So he says to Eliezer that a person to take an oath that I want you to take needs to hold a holy object. So it's very interesting. There was only one such physical entity that actually had holiness contained within it. And what was that? We'll see in a second. The only physical object so far that has been sanctified by virtue of it having been the object of an explicit commandment from God is my reproductive organ, which he commanded me to circumcise. Therefore, place your hand under my thigh. In other words, on the reproductive organ for this purpose. There was no tefillin, there was no Torah scroll, there was nothing like that. Only the bris of Avraham, that physical limb that physical organ became permeated with holiness and became the holy object that now could be used for this oath. Ve'ashbiacha b'Adonai elehei hashamayim ve'elehei haaretz asher lo yisikach isha livni mibnei hakanani asher anechi yeshev b'kerbei. What's the subject of the oath? What does he say? And I will bind you by an oath to God. Ever since coming to this land, I have been working successfully towards making its inhabitants aware of the existence of God and his involvement in human affairs. Right? This was Avram's mission. In their eyes, therefore, he is now not only the God of heaven, but also the God of earth. Avram was teaching people, even once he got them to believe in God, that God is actually intimately involved in our physical, human, earthly lives. Nonetheless, they have not yet sufficiently internalized this awareness for it to have changed them for the better in any profound way, and it still remains mere lip service for them. Therefore, I adjure you not to take a wife for my son from among the daughters of the Canaanites, in whose midst I live. Instead, you must go to my former land, to Haran, the place where my family still lives, and take a wife from among them for my son Isaac. Even though I have been away from my family for 65 years, and the distance has prevented me from properly influencing them directly, they are nonetheless of the royal firstborn line of Shem, and have inherited it, and have inherited its aristocratic upbringing, noble gentility, and family traditions and teachings. So does his servant swear to him? No, at least not yet. First, the servant gives some pushback. The servant said to him, Eliezer says, perhaps the woman will not wish to follow me to this land. Should I take your son back to the land from which you departed? After all, if you prefer that I take a wife for Isaac from among your family members rather than from among the people whom you have been influencing and living with for the past 65 years, then it shouldn't matter where the couple lives afterwards. So, instead of sending me to go find a girl who's willing to come back to meet Yitzchak and marry him, why don't you send me with Yitzchak? And, I'll have the husband to present to her. It's a little bit more enticing, and it doesn't really matter where they live, so long as he marries someone with this kind of upbringing that you're talking about. Avram said to him, absolutely not. Be most careful not to take my son back there. Vayemer elav Avraham, Hishamar lecha pen tashiv es b'ni shama. Adonai Elehei hashamayim asher lokachani mi beis avi omeretz miladati v'asher diber li v'asher nishba li lemer lezaracha etein asaras hazais hu yishlach malachi lefanacha v'lakachta isha livni misham. True, I would prefer that my future daughter-in-law be of my family's lineage, but that alone doesn't suffice, right? Just because she's from my family and she has that type of upbringing, that's not all that I need. When she and my son marry, they must grow together in a fitting environment, which is not to be found anywhere else but here. Although it's true that the people of this land only pay lip service to God's involvement in human affairs, at least they do that. In contrast, the people where I used to live consider God only still as the God of the heaven. Even though I convinced them of his existence, I didn't succeed in convincing them that he is involved with human affairs. This was how they conceived of God when he took me away from my father's house in Haran, and all the more so when he took me away from the land of my family, or Kastim, or of the Kastites, and this is how they still conceive of him. Moreover, God spoke concerning me and even swore to me in the covenant between the halves, saying, to your offspring will I give this land, clearly indicating that my son should remain here, in the land of Canaan, the land of Israel. I am therefore confident that he will send his angel before you to orchestrate events to your advantage in advance. In other words, Eliezer was clearly kind of like, it seems like he wasn't so sure if he'll be so successful or how easy it would be. And Avram is now telling him, I'm sure that Hashem is going to send his angel before you to grant you success. With his help, you will take a wife for my son from there. But still, Avram does give in a little bit to Eliezer's hesitation by saying this. Despite all this, if the woman does not wish to follow you back here, then you will be absolved of this oath of mine and may seek a wife for my son from among the daughters of my local confederates, Aner, Eshkol, and Mamre. Although they are not my relatives, they are distinguished leaders and monotheists. And this way, the couple can remain under my tutelage. In the final analysis, environment and education are more crucial than pedigree. The Rebbe would stress this very often to people who, especially when it came to marriage and looking to find a husband or a wife for their, a couple's son or daughter. And they're looking into the family and looking into the family and looking into the family and trying to find the family that sits with the other family and that it works well. Ultimately, what really matters is the environment that the couple will be in after they get married and their education before and after they get married, not their pedigree, not, who their parents are or what their family is like. It matters, but that's not all that matters, and that isn't the more important of the things that matter. In any event, do not return my son to there, even though I foresee that his son will indeed return there for a time. So obviously Avraham, with his Ruach HaKodesh, was able to see that his grandson Jacob would eventually go there himself. But he said, my son Yitzchak isn't going there. I didn't read that inside. That's the final pasuk of today's portion. So the servant placed his hand under the thigh of Abraham, his master, and swore to him regarding this. Let's see if I skipped any Rashis inside. I did indeed. A whole bunch. Okay. Zikan Beisai. So Lafishu Davuk Nakud Zkan. Okay, that's more a linguistic Rashi. Tachas Yirechi, why did Abraham say, make this oath by placing your hand under my thigh, which we said is his reproductive organ? He needs a object to do with a mitzvah, to hold on to. Could go in Sefer Torah, a mezuzah, or tefillin. Va'amila, and his bris milah, the circumcision, haisa mitzvah rishain alai, uba alai ayidei tzar, v'haisa chaviva alav v'natala. So, or Natala. And obviously his circumcision was the first mitzvah given to him, and it came to him through pain, and he cherished it very much. So I believe that this means Unatala, that Eliezer took it. Eliezer therefore held on to it to make this oath. It doesn't say God, the God of the earth. But earlier, when we were talking about when Avram was saying that the people here where I am, I've taught them that it's Elekei Hashemayim and Elekei Haaretz. It says that I taught them that Hashem is involved in human affairs. But when he's talking about the people back in Haran, he doesn't say that. He says only that he's the God of heaven over there. Right, so it's not only, as I explained, that Avram taught them that Hashem is involved in human affairs and in our earthly material existence, but also just about how familiar human beings are with Hashem. So at that point, Avram is reminding him that now he's the God of heaven and God of earth because I've made him familiar among humanity. But when Hashem took me from my father's house, that's when he was known only as the God of heaven. Oh, Beisavi, from my father's house, in other words, from Haran, Umeretz Miladatian, from the land of my family, or Kastim, Vasher Diberli. We're just going through all the Rashis of the Chumash, which we finished the Pesukim and translation inside. Vasher Diberli, who spoke to me. Li here means Litzarki, for my need or for my benefit. Kamayasher Diber Alai, like we find in a similar place. Also in the Torah we find another pasuk, similar wording, which he spoke concerning me, Allah. And likewise, every la and li and lahem that follows every word, daber, right, to speak to me or to him or to them, is explained to be about them or about me, right? And their translation in Aramaic is alai or alehain or alehi. The word daber does not take loi, li, and lahem as the object, but a love, a lai, and alehem. And their translation in Aramaic is imhain, imi, and imei. However, in the case of the verb amar, loy, li, and lahem are used as the object. So when it comes to vasher diberli, like it says here in this pasuk, who spoke to me, it means who spoke about me, etc. Right? That the land of Israel will belong to my descendants. So Yitzchak should stay here. But when it comes to the word amar, then it's not about, but it's to, right? Spoke to me, or to them, or to him. Vasher nishbali, and he swore to me. When? Rashi points out, bein absarim. What does it mean when he says that you will be absolved of this oath? That I actually have a question on this, but he's saying that then you won't have to find a wife for Yitzchak from this place. Rather, you could come back here and take a wife for him from the daughters of Anar, Eshkol, and Mamre, my confederates over here. And last one, Rak es Beni, but don't bring back my son. Rak miotu, it's an exclusion. Beni einay chayzer, my son does not go with you. Al Yaakov ben Beni sefer lachzar, but Yaakov, my grandson, will eventually go back to that place, which was called Haran because it's Haran Avshal Makim. It was a pretty depraved place, and one that the inhabitants angered Hashem with their behavior, scamming each other all day, and lots of idol worship. All right, that's today's Chumash. Oh wow, there are some comments on here. What do you know? Thank you everybody for joining.